Okay, it is 7 o'clock. So I call the December 3rd voting meeting to order, the Keystone Central Board of Directors. We will start again with the flag salute and a moment of silence. Do we have a flag?
I can get you one in a hurry.
Thank you.
I was going to say I can share one, Bo, but I can't share it while you're sharing.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United States of
United
America
States of America,
and to the
to
republic
the republic for which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God,
under God, indivisible,
liberty and
with
justice.
liberty,
just
just for all.
Can I have the roll call, please, Mrs. Long?
Mrs. Donahue, Mr. Elling,
Present.
Mr. Johnston,
present.
Mr. Koch,
Present.
Ms. Lynch,
Present.
Mr. Miller,
I'm here.
Mr. Probert, Mr. Probert, I think he's still there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I hear you. Mrs. Smith,
Present.
Mr. Strauss,
Present.
8 members present.
So the first thing, we'll have a presentation on our COVID-19 update.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen with you for this brief presentation. So just a brief update about the footprint of Clinton County is not that entire red triangle, but it does encompass the 3 counties in the triangle. And for 13 straight weeks, Center County has been in the substantial range, while Clinton and Potter have remained in the substantial range for 3 weeks. That information is updated usually around noon every Friday. And I'm expecting to see that tomorrow. I do expect, based on the daily numbers I've been seeing this week, that we'll still be in the substantial range for Clinton County. But tomorrow, after those official numbers come in, is when I'll send a communication whether or not we're still in a full remote model or not, which I do, again, expect that to be the case. So as many of you are aware, last week, Dr. Levine updated the order on face coverings. It's a quite lengthy document. However, I just provided a summary for you here. This is information that I have shared with the board prior to this evening regarding some safety issues and the district. It does define some of these bulleted points here, and it does talk about physical distancing as 6 feet as opposed to the word social distancing. That's been a huge change. And also working alone has also been defined better with this new order. And then the face coverings, again, apply to everyone as we had seen it before. And I don't think that the updated order changes a lot with our requirements on face coverings, because our district health and safety plan went above and beyond already what the state had required. previously. So there are some exceptions in this updated order, which are similar to what our plan addresses already. And wearing mask and reasonably enforcing. The reasonably enforcing is also, I believe, new language. And again, this replaces the old order from July 15th and was effective on the 18th. There's a link there to the full order if anyone's interested in additional information. One of the things that is new, this is actually originally from August. And you can see that based on the level of community transmission in the county and the incident rates, they've established these guidelines. And then based on that has a recommended model for instruction. As you know, in the fall, most of our weekly rates were in the low or moderate ranges. And we were using actually a full in-person model. And we were doing the best we could do to keep students physically distanced. But because the number of students increased, students who came back to in-person learning increased significantly, I can tell you that we cannot guarantee that students who are in person were maintaining a 6-foot distance during class time. And you can see that if you reach any of these, that they are only recommending full in-person model in the low range. This is significant because what happens before was they were making these recommendations and it was up to superintendents and individual school districts to decide whether or not they were following those recommendations. There were times when Center County was insubstantial, and even though they were in our footprint, based on the zip code of where their infectious rate was taking place, we decided that we did not want that to impact our in-person learning model. That was happening around the state. There were a lot of school districts not following it. So we believe that this updated mask order and the indication for schools, the changes for schools is because of that. So now what they're saying is all schools must sign, the superintendents and board presidents must sign an attestation form attesting that in the event that you are going to bring in students for in-person instruction, any students, whether that's just a special population of students or any model of students, that you have to follow the recommendations that are listed here. I'm gonna jump to this, and they changed the recommendations for small, medium, and large schools. At Keystone Central, we only qualify for small schools, which would be Bucktail, Liberty, Curtin, Mill Hall, Renova, Robb, and Woodward, or large schools, which would be our remaining schools. And then what they did was they changed the information, you can see that's in red, that says the cases, we used to have a different color-coded chart that we used, and now we have this different model. If we are to return to school or have any students return to school while we're in the substantial range, again, we're very specific about the number of cases within a 14-day rolling 14-day period. So that's different data and different numbers than what we were using before. Similar, but somewhat different. So this is the large school, which it would impact, the numbers would impact Central Mountain Middle School and Central Mountain High School, as well as our CTC. I lumped the CTC here because it's in the same building with Central Mountain High School. So basically what I wanted to say that we are going to, when we are able to return to athletics, that basketball, wrestling, and bocce ball, students participating in those sports would be required to wear masks unless an individual student meets the exception. There are no blanket waivers for whole teams or whole leagues with regard to this. And swimming is the only exception to masks, and that is only while students are actually in the pool swimming. When they're on the pool deck or otherwise, they would be expected to wear masks as well. So should we permit in-person athletics while on full remote or insubstantial? As with some further discussion with the board regarding safety, I think there are some times when there could be exceptions to that, because if we are on full remote, it may not only be because of substantial community spread or cases, it could also be related to staffing. Many districts across the state are planning to, they're struggling with staffing, especially when you have so many staff members that need to quarantine due to a positive case or being a contact to a positive case. I had talked to members of the Pennsylvania Heartland Athletic Conference about a potential delay to the season, and that did not happen. They're going to move forward with competitions as well as our league in the Northern Tier. I was hopeful that there would be a delay overall from PIAA for the winter sports season, which would help our students, but at this time, I don't see that on the horizon either. Our students will have to practice at least 15 times before they're permitted to participate. And right now our students have not started their winter sports season. The attestation form was signed by myself and Mr. Miller and was submitted to PDE. When this came out, they gave us a very short turnaround. It was required to be submitted by Monday. 99% of the schools across the state did actually submit the same attestation form. And basically you had to attest that you were going to follow these new regulations if you want to bring any single group of students or any students in during when any one of your counties is insubstantial. So based on solicitor advice, my advice was that we select the first of the two options. The second option would have been if we wouldn't select to follow or attest to follow those new rules, then we were not permitted by any way, shape, or form to have any activities, and we got no flexibility for choices without selecting the first option. This is just a little bit more of what I just explained. And my recommendation would be to complete the form, which we've done. We've completed number 2 and 3 and 4. And tonight at the meeting, I'm asking the board to consider ratifying that completed attestation form that was required to be submitted earlier. I think that there are a few steps that we need to take as this COVID situation continues to develop. One is a new spreadsheet to monitor the 14-day rolling cases by building. So we've been starting to collect different data in order to be compliant with the attestation. We continue to review the community spread data every day. We make a formal decision at the end of each week. We continue to communicate to staff, families, community, and media. And the last bulleted item is new, and that would be consider development of a blended learning model to include half of the students for when we return to monitor lowest status. I kind of watch the Clinton County as the biggest bulk of our cases, but according to the attestation form, we could still come in if any one of those counties are in the substantial range. So our administrative team has started to draft a new plan for blended learning or a hybrid model where some of the students come in on designated days and half of the students come on another day. So that's where we're at. We continue to try to be responsive and flexible to what's happening across the state with COVID cases and so forth. And wanted to know if there's any questions from the group at this time.
Hi, this is Elizabeth. I just wanted to thank everybody, we all do, for everything that everyone is doing, the teachers, the staff, and all the background work that nobody knows that you're doing. And thank you for this presentation. It was exceptional.
There was some concern about the masking and the kids having the masks on, like while they're playing basketball. That is from the state, correct? That guideline?
It is, and I've just spoken to some superintendents in other schools where schools have been practicing and students have been wearing the mask, and they said that they are making it work, and the same with wrestling.
Okay.
And the feeling is that if that's what we have to do to have our season, we'll do it. That's a general consensus that was relayed to me.
Dr. Martin, this is Rachel Eiler. Are we allowed to ask questions as a community at this point?
So Rachel, at this time, there is a community public comment time.
Okay, I didn't know.
technically you would have to sign up early, but if think that Mrs. Smith may permit you, because I know there's only one other person signed up, so she may ask you later in the meeting if you wanted to
Okay.
make any comments. But it is
Okay.
just public comment. It's not for answering questions. If you have
Okay.
specific questions, Rachel, I would be more than happy if you emailed me or contacted me. I could try to respond.
Okay, I just want an update on this special ed.
When we get to public comment, we can discuss it.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other members of the board have any comments? Okay, hearing none, we will go to the hearing and visitors. Mrs. Long, do we have anybody signed up to speak?
We have Joseph Hannah.
Okay, Mr. Hannah, just a reminder, we limit our time to 4 minutes for public comment.
Okay. First up, after a presentation like that, I feel like the mouse that walked into the elephant convention. But I'm going to just go through a script that I have here. I wanted to take the opportunity tonight to address the current head coaching vacancy within the football program. As some of you may be aware, I've been associated with Central Mountain Football Program since consolidation. That's included many years, 2 years at Jersey Shore, many at Lock Haven. And in that time, I've worked under 7 different head coaches. Tonight, I'd like to offer you a unique perspective and one I believe can be considered both professional as well as expeditious. My oldest son, Joe Jr., is a middle school teacher and a football coach down at Montoursville since 2002. For the past 10 years, his head coach has been J.C. Kiefer. To say the Warriors have had a success is a gross understatement. At this past Tuesday's school board meeting, Montoursville, their board accepted the resignation of Coach Kiefer. He actually lives in Loyalsock Township. His young son is just getting into the football games, and he wants to be a parent in the stands. The board thanked JC for his service and promptly hired assistant coach Boughton to be the next coach at Montoursville. It's my understanding Coach Boughton had predetermined the continued support of his fellow coaches before he offered his name for consideration. Success today is regrettably a year-round undertaking. While I'm currently an assistant coach for the junior high staff, I have great confidence in this past year's varsity defensive coordinator. He's been a key contributor to the recent success of our varsity football program. He enjoys a similar support from our staff, as did Montoursville coach, Coach Boughton. Consistency, commitment, continuity are key components to all endeavors. I can assure you that no matter what process you deem appropriate in naming your new head coach, Coach Thompson will commence the necessary off-season workouts as pandemic restraints allow, so that the successes of the past year can hopefully be continued. I suppose what I'm really saying here is I'm just trying to get you to think of some, move the needle, shall we say. I want to thank you for the opportunity to address this topic in these difficult times. I consider your efforts as those of our many essential workers. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Hannah. Since we did have some new information for the COVID-19 update, are there any other members of the public who have a comment? Like Dr. Martin. Go ahead.
Is this where I can ask or I can make a comment?
Yes, you can, Ms. Eiler. Go ahead.
Okay. So I will email Dr. Martin as well, but in her presentation about updates to COVID, I don't think there was anything mentioned about special ed and the students in that category. I talked to Dr. Martin about, what the plan is for our kiddos if you guys are going to try and send them partial days, a couple days a week, so they can continue to receive services that they're not currently getting to their fullest potential. So I don't know. I guess I'll email Dr. Martin, but that's my concern. My daughter is a multidisability student, and she receives speech, PT, OT, and vision from Keystone. And that's a major part of her education. You know, it's also in her IEP. And remote learning, doing Zoom, it does not work for her. So my concern is that surrounding districts have a plan for special ed, and that they would continue to go to school if the district shuts down. And I just want to know what Keystone's plan is, you know, short and long term.
So Rachel, as I said, this was the board's rules state that this is a public comment time. However, with the blessing, with the okay from Ms. Smith, I think I can give you a little bit of an update because I think it is appropriate to the presentation, which I didn't address specifically. Tracy, is that okay with you?
Yes. Yep, that's fine. Go ahead.
So in my presentation, I talked about some special populations, and that would have included some special ed students with multi-disabilities, life skills, and autistic support. And where Keystone Central is right now on that item is I've asked our special ed department to collect information from our parents and just kind of get a feel for how many parents would be comfortable sending their students back if they have any of those low incident disabilities, those low incident categories. We are still, I think, possibly right before break or even the beginning of this week, or the rest of this week, getting my days confused, finalizing some of that information. Not all the parents have gotten back to Dr. Barnhart or Mrs. Harvey with their concerns. And so what we need to do now is we need to circle up and look at the number of data and the number of people who are interested. I do believe that there was a pretty strong interest in having many of those children return. It certainly would not be a requirement, it would be a parent's choice. But I also share your concern about students with those low incident populations really missing out a lot based on the number of services that they need on a weekly basis. So we are working on that, as well as COVID compensatory ed conversations with families. And as soon as we're able to make a decision, we will let you, all of the parents know. Additionally, this plays into the hybrid model that we may be looking at that changes maybe the dynamics of what we were talking to parents about, because some parents may have been comfortable having their child come back knowing that there were only a handful of students in each building. But if half of the students are back in the building, does that change the dynamics for those individuals? So we're still trying to work out some of those details. And right now we don't have anything firmed up, but we are working in that direction.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Yep.
Since I allowed that, any other members of the public have a comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
I have a report for this evening. Thank you. So earlier this week, we learned of the unexpected and tragic death of one of our students, Anson Stover. Anson was a fourth grader at Robb Elementary and will be remembered by his teachers and friends for his kind heart and smile. While classes are continuing remotely, the district has had in-person counseling available since Tuesday at Robb and Central Mountain Middle School, in addition to telehealth services. These services will continue throughout next week as well. If we need to extend them, we'll consider extending that. If anyone is in need of support over the weekend or anytime, please contact the Clinton County Crisis Hotline at 570-748-2262 or any of our counselors. Additional information for grief counseling and support is available on the main page of our district website, on Facebook, and as well as Twitter. We have been remote since November 2nd, and since that time, I just want to give a shout out to our food service staff and Sharon Berger and her team, because just in the month of November thus far, we have served over 37,000 breakfasts and 37,000 lunches for a total of 75,058 meals in the month of November. It's very clear that our community has a need for these meals, and we'll continue to provide them as we continue to navigate this strange time that we're in. And then on another special note on the agenda this evening for the board's consideration is to accept the retirement of Paula Leupold. Paula is currently the principal at Mill Hall Elementary. And I certainly didn't want this to go overlooked without saying a few words. Paula has been with the district since 2006, and she served our school community in several different capacities during this time. She's been a French teacher at Central Mountain High School, an assistant principal and athletic director at Central Mountain High School. She's been the assistant principal at Central Mountain Middle School, and she's been an elementary principal at multiple buildings, including Woodward, Liberty Curtin, and Mill Hall. And she's also, at one time, was also providing support to the Renova campus in Bucktail. And most recently, since I've been here and we added district program leaders the other year, she's willing to step up and serve as our district program leader for world languages. So Paula, somebody who's carried so many different hats and served in so many different capacities, K through 12 in this district, certainly congratulate you on this decision and wish you well. And again, we're so fortunate that you have decided to stay on with us throughout the remainder of the school year. So thank you for your service. That's all I have, Tracy.
All right, thank you. So we will move on to committee reports. Curricular, co-curricular, is that Eric? Can we hear Eric? Is he on still? Okay, can't hear him. Is there another member of the committee who can update us?
Roger could possibly.
Roger?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth?
Can you bring up the minutes from the meeting? That might be helpful if everyone could just look at them real quickly.
I can at the moment.
I think if you don't mind, Elizabeth, I can just share that basically the committee did meet and the main concern or the main point of discussion was the course catalog that's on the agenda for this evening, as well as the curriculum development process for social studies.
Okay, and we'll have a look at that later on.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was basically the sum total of everything there. The big concern was, how we were doing things, and the presentation that we were given was very informative.
That was given by Megan Hall.
And
And and Sarah Strauss.
there you go.
You're testing my memory.
Okay. Facilities committee, Jeff?
You're on mute, Jeff.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Tracy. We did meet, the committee met on November 24th, and we discussed several items. First of all, we were, if you recall, when from the McClure presentation at the last meeting, there were a number of items that they proposed, 12, I believe, of possible things that could be done in phase 2 here, most of them at the Bucktail High School. And what the committee was recommending is that we look at approving tonight the main 2 that we have budgeted for, not to exceed $2,850,000, which was budgeted on through the bond issue. And so we're recommending that the board approve tonight items 1, 2, and 12 off of that. Item 12 is the energy savings from the window replacement. And the others is 1 and 2 are the lighting retrofit, the building insulation envelope, and the air conditioning upgrade. Those projects will begin either in the spring or definitely in the summer. Also, we looked at an updated and revised 10-year plan, and it is attached, has been attached to the board agenda. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. If you haven't, we have, because of some substantial savings in the one middle school, I believe it was the window project, we were able to fund some other projects with our bond money. And if you're looking, when you look at that revised plan, and this is just a draft, by the way, we'll be hopefully be able to approve that final draft of that at the January meeting. But those first 26 items in red on your 10-year plan, those are ones that we are, because of some savings and we're able to reallocate some money, we're able to, we feel should be able to fund all of those projects that are in red there with our bond issue. We did talk about a couple other items that as far as the canopy and so on up at Bucktail, which kind of the next, well, first of all, let me back up. There are 2 items on the agenda tonight for approval. The warehouse freezer, that project came in a little higher than we had wanted it to be, but we feel that's paid for out of the capital money. And also the Rob stair lift, which has been kind of on the docket for a while. It came in pretty close to what we were expecting it to be. So that's also on the agenda. And what you'll see also we discussed was the proposal for the Bucktail Middle High School for the 3 entrance canopies. We're going to recommend that Crabtree do the design and the construction drawings for the architectural, structural, electric and these we want to hopefully have these drawings kind of reflect the community and the surroundings up there and make it look kind of unique to the area for those 3 entrances to the building. And so we're recommending that, and this would just be for the design and so on, not to run the project or anything. They'll bring those back to us to show us what they have. And we might also be able to look at something that they come up with, and because something's going to need to be done with the middle school canopies too, either repair them or replace them with something. And I'm talking the canopies out near the main entrance there. And since we're not using that area for bus loading of students, doesn't have to be quite as extensive as it is now, and it is kind of a safety concern in some areas. So we're talking about maybe doing something different with the canopies there, either replacing it or definitely put it something different. So basically that was it. There are a couple other items there in the minutes if you want to look at that. But I don't know if Jackie or Susan or anybody or any of the other committee members has anything to add to that, but I think that was the gist of the meeting.
Thank you, Jeff.
I don't have anything else for that, Tracy, but I did forget something that is from the co-curricular that's actually on the agenda tonight as a new item for the board. So if it's okay, I wanted to call that out.
Sure. Go ahead.
There is under athletics, we also talked about a co-op arrangement that would allow any students from Bucktail High School to participate in boys or girls swimming. This year, and what we found out was there was an old agreement that's on the books with PIAA and so forth for a co-op between Bucktail and Williamsport. We haven't used that co-op in several years. No students have been participating there. So on tonight's agenda, there is a motion, or there's a item to approve the dissolution of the Williamsport Bucktail Swimming Co-op, and then a second item to approve a co-op between Bucktail High School and Central Mountain High School. And this year, LHU is not allowing us or permitting us to use their swimming pool for reasons of safety related to COVID. And we are going to be leasing the pool in Renova at the community center. And based on that information, there was some interest in students at Bucktail High School to participate in swimming this year. And so I would be respectfully asking the board to dissolve one co-op and approve another so that that could happen.
Okay, great. Finance Committee, is that Randy?
We won't have a meeting till January, so there's nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Personnel negotiations, we did meet on November 16th. That's about all I have for that. We will meet again the 21st, I believe, December 21st. Policy Committee, Wayne?
Okay, I got my mic on now. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, thank you.
Okay, the next meeting of the policy committee will be January the 13th. As you can see by the minutes of the last policy committee meeting, which are posted on this agenda, a number of items, there are about 2 or 3 items, if I remember, have been put off until the January meeting. And other than that, we will meet in January. I don't know if Mr. Johnson or Mrs. Lynch have anything to add to that, or Dr. Martin.
I have nothing.
Otherwise, that's my report.
Thanks, Wayne. Safety and Security Committee?
We have nothing to report. We have a meeting coming up this coming Wednesday.
Perfect. And then Mrs. Long did send us the board committee meeting calendar. Does anybody have any comments on that?
If I could just make a comment about the functioning in the committees has been extremely successful for this board. We've been able to get an awful lot of work and awful lot of information delved into and dissected, and be able through this committee work to confidently bring forward recommendations to the full board. And so I'm excited about the committees, and I'm glad that we have committees moving forward. So thanks to the board for all your extra hours and time that you put into these monthly committee meetings. They're not light agendas, and we just appreciate everything you do and put your time in, because you are, after all, elected, but you're volunteers in these roles. So thank you to everyone who served in these committees, and looking forward to working with you as we move into this next year.
Yeah.
Madam President,
Yes.
I would just like to remind the board and committee personnel that 3 of our 6 committees, those being the Finance Committee, the Personnel and Negotiations Committee, and the Safety and Security Committee, will need to have new chairs before they meet again.
Yes, we will take care of that. I'll appoint new chairs. Thank you. Okay, moving on to section F of the agenda. Treasurer's report, financial reports, enrollment report. Sorry, I'm kind of doing it all at once. Does anybody have any questions on the treasurer's report? Anything on the financial end, financial reports? Okay, any board members have any questions on the enrollment? Hearing none, we'll go to section G, the board information. G1 is the 21-22 calendar for the school year. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that?
I have some comments on that one. Just wanted to know that the last time that we discussed the school calendar, there was some concern about not having FaceTime with parents potentially scheduled in the school calendar. And so what we did, what's different about this calendar, all the dates are the same. The difference would be the addition of open house evenings at the elementary, middle school, and high school levels. And they are actually denoted on the calendars, and those would be work days for our teachers and some staff members.
Madam President, I have a comment on this calendar.
Sure. Go ahead.
I still disagree that we do not have parent conferences scheduled on the 23rd, 22nd, and 23rd. I appreciate the open houses. We've always had open houses after school earlier in the year. I just feel parents, and I've spoke to different parents at different places around town, and I've asked the question, high school parents are not as concerned. Unless their child's having a problem, they're not that concerned about parent conferences, but the elementary and middle school parents are very concerned. And I would like to take a hard look at this calendar once again and reinstate those 2 half days and reinstate the parent-teacher conferences. I think it's an important part of the district and the teachers and the parents to get a chance to communicate with each other. Yes, they do throughout the school year, but people look forward to those. Sometimes it might be the only time the parents actually come in and see the teacher. Obviously with COVID, that has changed things a little bit. Hopefully next year when the vaccine's out there, numbers are down, and we can actually have real live person parent conferences. But I just feel taking away time from parents to meet the teachers is a bad idea. That's all. I mean, that's just how I feel.
Well, the calendar that's before you tonight is what was the result of the board's direction for us to go back and look at adding some time back in, whether it was open houses or not. So I believe that the calendar that comes forward follows the directions that the board gave us. If the board, if the majority of the board desires us to go back and look at it again, certainly we can. However, what I would say, Randy, is I understand the value of face-to-face, but just because it's on a calendar doesn't mean that it can't happen. And teachers, and there are multiple meetings, there are multiple IEP meetings, there are SAKE meetings, and there's nothing that prevents teachers from having face-to-face conference time with parents, whether it's called by the teacher or by the parents. So parents can certainly request that as well. So the calendar doesn't prohibit it, it's just not scheduled conference time.
Jack, a question for you regarding that. I know you went back and I think you revisited this with the principals and so on. Is that correct? And I just wondered, did they get any feedback from the teachers as a group? Did they feel that strongly that they would like to see conferences continue, or is that something that they're okay with this? I mean, I just am curious.
Yeah, there's a calendar committee, and there are teachers on that committee and representations from each of the associations. And I don't recall any major discussion. I know, Patty, you ran the meeting. If you're on, you want to make a comment, any major discussions about adding it back in or any passion for that?
I know it's been a kind of an institution here as long as I can remember that they've had those. But that's what I'm saying, is that I kind of tend to agree with you. If they need to see parents, they can schedule. And I can see where Randy's coming from, that maybe it is the only time they get into the school. But I don't know. I just wondered if the teachers felt really strongly that they want to continue these or not.
I've not been given any information from the teachers, nor did we do any type of survey about that topic with teachers. And my guess is that we would get the mixed bag, because I know that there are some teachers who have very few people attend on those evenings. And then there are others who have maybe several and they're overwhelmed and it's difficult to get everybody scheduled in. And I think just my personal feeling is I understand it's something that we've always done in education. I've been familiar with it for the last 3 decades. And I think that there is some value to it, but I don't think that we lose that value just because it's not scheduled on a certain night. And there are certain families who can't make that particularly scheduled night for parent conferences, which is why the flexibility still exists for them to have it. And if teachers feel strongly about it, they certainly have the ability to contact those parents and schedule anytime to have those conferences.
And I think it's also been my experience that it's usually the parents that of the students that are doing well that are the ones that usually show up most, and the ones that they really need to see, it's difficult to get them in, even on the conference nights.
Yeah, I would say in my 30 years, I've spent 15 years at elementary. And that would hold true across 3 different school districts, that it's not always the parents that you really need to see that are coming into that conference night, and that other parents feel obligated to come on that designated night, or they're going to be labeled the bad parent for not being there. And I do think that having the open house where you have the opportunity to come in, see the classroom, get a comfort level, have the face-to-face connection with the teacher. We have multiple modes of communication with parents that include Class Dojo, email, PowerSchool. We have Zoom, we have Google Meet, and we also have the option of face-to-face. So I feel like this is a more contemporary approach, but again, I think it's a fair approach that maybe reaches more people and gives more flexibility for the people who really need to be seen, and the attention given. That option's still there.
I think we just go ahead and approve this calendar personally.
Okay. Any other comments on the calendar? Okay, number 2 is the master course catalog for the year 21-22 for grades 9 through 12.
Tracy, I think Eric was trying to talk about the calendar.
I'm sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Barely. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm having trouble with this computer, but Dr. Martin mentioned like some feedback from the teachers. Would it be possible to
We lost you. I think he was asking if it's possible for you to get some feedback.
Yes, it's definitely possible.
And is there anything saying we can't come back and change? Well, I know because it's a scheduled workday, it'd be hard to change, but keep it in mind for the next year then.
Well, I mean, there is time. It would be, typically we approve a school calendar in November, but then it's can be changed or modified multiple times. And what I will say is if we change back to the model where the parent conferences, you will lose the time of the open house time in the beginning of the year, which is required attendance. Currently, the open houses that someone referred to are not time that teachers are required to be in attendance. So it's a trade-off because of the contractual obligations and the number of days and hours.
Thanks. Okay, so then moving on to the 21-22 course catalog.
And can I just also mention that there were people on the committee that did represent the teachers. I don't know if I don't believe they did a survey asking everyone, but they were present representing that voice.
I have a question. It's procedural. Being this is a voting meeting and we're going through each item individually, is it appropriate to have a motion to approve the school calendar or to table?
To do what, Bob?
To either approve the school calendar or to table that?
I'm not sure.
You can, yeah, but I think she was just going through.
Yeah, I'm sorry, did I?
We're kind of stuck. I think we're kind of stuck because without a work session to discuss some of these issues, we'd have to have the vote, then turn around and pull probably different things out as an exception. Is that what you're thinking of, Bo?
No, what I'm saying is procedurally, when we don't have a work session, we go through the agenda. Normally we vote on each item individually rather than moving the entire agenda.
Gotcha.
I think it can be done either way, though.
Okay.
What would you like to do, Tracy?
Well, I don't want to do anything wrong on my first night, so what do we?
I would say, why don't you just do it as we usually do? And if there's items that need to be pulled out for further discussion when we get to the end, then do it that way. That'd be my suggestion.
Okay, if nobody has any objections, that's what I was planning on doing. Okay. All right. 21-22 master course catalog. Any comments or questions on that? Hearing none. E3 and 4 was the attestation form that Jackie and Bo took care of that we discussed earlier. Were there any other comments or questions on that? Okay. Section H is minutes from the policy committee, co-curricular, curricular, basically all the committees. Any questions or comments on those? Section I, any questions on the bills for payment? Then we had student activities for the update for the year so far. I3 is the UPMC pilot agreement, the payment in lieu of taxes agreement. Any questions or comments from the board on that? Okay. Number 4 was the agreement with NRG Controls North for emergency controller repairs at the Central Mountain High School VOTEC, not to exceed $36,460 paid for by the capital fund. Any questions on that? I5, agreement with Western Clinton County Recreational Authority for the facility use. That will be paid for by the general fund. That's the pool. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. I6 was the agreement with Gordian for the warehouse freezer project, not to exceed $95,300.43 paid for by the capital fund.
I have a question on that, Madam President.
Go ahead.
I don't know if Rob's on or not, or maybe Jeff can answer this question. This freezer seems to be getting very expensive when we paid $60,000 for the original freezer, I believe, which is it not installed or is it just waiting to be put in? Then I see $95,000 basically to put the freezer in, make the new, almost sounds like we're building a new building for the freezer. And I just would like to know a little bit more about this, what this bid out. This seems very expensive and a lot of money to put in for a freezer. What are we doing with the food right now that's supposed to be in the freezer?
I can answer a few of those questions. The freezer, the 60,000 was the original cost of the freezer. The freezer is on order. It's ready to be shipped. We have the 95,000 to Gordian is for the pad that sits on. It also has a roof structure that goes over top of it. We looked at it a couple different ways. If we would have used the freezer with steel reinforcing and everything in it, it was about double the cost to get it that way. So we got the freezer. It's an indoor freezer. We're going to put a roof over top of it so that we can set it on the end of the building. We did it the best way possible to save the most amount of money. So,
so what are we using? Where was the freezer at before, Rob?
It was inside of the warehouse. It was too small for the current use of what we had. We had problems. Didn't even have a door big enough that we could get a skid through. That freezer was the one that was actually, at some point, it was a Dickie and had been moved up to the warehouse. I don't know the age of it. We had a bunch of problems with moisture and some different things when we got rid of that freezer, and doing the best we can with stashing food everywhere and also utilizing the VOTEX freezer, which has caused some problems because we're trying to share it between the the student use and the food service use. But we've been doing the best, and some of it's been through COVID, so we haven't had as much food in that there. But
Right.
this is where
And
we're
I guess
at.
my other question was, this was bid out, correct?
It went through the code or the state contract system with Gordian. So it's all the pre-bid, the pre-book pricing, and some of it was co-stars.
Okay.
So we went through all the
Okay, thank you.
process we had to.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Hi, Rob. This is Elizabeth. And Jeff, I think memory serves me correctly. And that's what's so great about these committees is that you go into great detail, and I mean that in a positive way, about these different things. And now this freezer, the way it's being set up, this should last the district a long time. If I remember what you said during the meeting, that's correct. This isn't just sort of like a fix for a couple of years. This is like the big thing, right? This is like a long-term solution, if I remember correctly, right?
You are right. That this is a really long-term freezer. I mean, that should be there for quite a few years.
Yeah, and I'll echo that with Jeff. It's a long-term solution for it. We've addressed the stuff as far as being able to load it and unload it easy. We can actually get a skid through the door with a pallet jack. The floor's concrete. There's just a numbers of things that have been addressed to try and take care of any issues we had previously and make it more efficient moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next under business was the agreement with Gordian for the stair lift repairs at Robb Elementary, not to exceed $39,957.56, paid for by the capital fund. We have any questions or comments on that? Okay. Moving on, is the agreement with Crabtree for the Bucktail canopy design, bid and construction for the administration project, not to exceed $28,500, paid for by the 2020 bond issuance. Any questions or comments?
I just had a really quick comment. Being on that committee, I'm just really, really impressed that, and I think it was Dr. Martin that actually said it, for those that missed her comment, was that, no, we're not going to put a, I'm going to use the word Cadillac. No, we're not wasting money on a Cadillac, but at the same time, that it is an entrance to the building, and it does give an aesthetic and a feeling. And the fact that the designers that the school district committee picked, they're really going to look at the character, the community. So I'll be honest with you, I am super excited to see what their architectural concept is. And I'm hoping that whatever they present, whether it gets tweaked or not, that the community really loves it. So let's see where it goes. I'm excited about this, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I-9 is the McClure ESCO project phase 2. We're going to make a motion to approve an amendment to the guaranteed energy savings agreement at a cost not to exceed $2,850,246. These are for projects listed in the guaranteed energy savings program dated November 24th and contingent upon the district solicitor's approval. Any comments or questions on that? I think Jeff touched on that in his committee report. Okay. And I-10 was a settlement that we discussed in executive session. So can't say too much on that. So moving on to section J, personnel. We have various leaves of absence, some resignations and some retirements. Any questions or comments on that?
Hi,
Yes,
Tracy.
ma'am.
I just wanted to, for under leaves of absence, just so everyone understands, when it says absence is in accordance with the new federal leave regulations, I was just hoping someone might be able to help explain all that to us so we all understand.
Mark?
Yeah, Elizabeth, what that is in reference to is the law that was passed by the federal government in April, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, where it allows staff to take leave of absence based on COVID-related issues. So that's what that is in reference to.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd just like to thank Carol Kunkel for her 24 years of service in Keystone Central. She's a teacher and she's retiring. I'd just like to point that out, that 24 years, it's a long time in one position anymore.
Yes, it is. Thank you. And thank you, Carol, for your service to the district along with Mrs. Loopold. Anything else on personnel? Okay, so we'll move on to athletics. As Dr. Martin said earlier, we need approval for the dissolution of the co-op agreement for boys and girls swimming between Bucktail and Williamsport. And then section 2 is the approval of the co-op for boys and girls swimming between Bucktail and Central Mountain effective for the 2021 school year, pending PIAA approval. Do we have any comments or questions on that? Okay. Hearing none, I'd like to ask.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr.
I'd
Stroh.
like to make a motion. I know where you're heading.
Thank you.
Roger, back me up on this one. I'd like to make a motion to move the entirety of the agenda. What am I forgetting? Unless there's an exception.
Does anybody have anything they want pulled from the agenda for separate consideration?
I got is this a voting meeting now?
Yes, this was kind of a combination.
Okay.
Madam President, I'd like to pull G1.
Okay. All right, I have G1 pulled. Anything else? So,
Tracy,
yes,
question. for you.
Roger. Yes.
The one that we have to make an amendment to. I forget where that item was. You said we had to make an amendment to it?
I did. Uh-oh. You lost me.
Uh,
I think we were talking about, was that when we were talking about the school calendar?
I think that's where it was.
Yeah, and that's what Randy just pulled for separate consideration.
Okay, all right, good enough then.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the entire agenda with the exception of G1.
I make that motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Can I, Tracy, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Probert,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Strauss,
Yes.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
Mr. Johnston,
Yes.
Mr. Koch,
Yes.
Ms. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
8 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, so can I have a motion to approve item G1, the school calendar?
So move.
May I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Discussion?
Yes, Madam President, just a quick my last statement on the subject.
Okay.
I still feel that it's important for the parents to meet with the teachers. With the teachers, all I did do an open house, as far as I know. And I don't know that they ever were paid for it or not, but they did it anyhow at the beginning of the school year. I still feel that it's an important thing, but I also understand the reasons why the district's looking at not doing it. And like I said, maybe it's my stubbornness of, it's like Jeff had commented, this is something we've always done. But I think we're losing something by getting rid of this. I think we're losing contact with the parents, which is something that the district sorely needs, especially with the coronavirus situation. That's all. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Tracy, can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Strauss,
No.
Mr. Elling,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Koch,
Yes.
Ms. Lynch,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Probert.
No.
Did you say no?
He said no, Tracy.
Yeah, I heard no
I
also.
do also.
Okay. Six yes and 2 no votes. Motion carries.
Thank you. So we are at the end of this voting meeting. Do any other board members have anything for the good of the board to discuss?
Oh, Ms. Smith, President Smith, yes, I would just like to thank Bo for being our president for 2 years. I think he's done an outstanding job. He's really helped us with technology, partnering with the IT people at the district, really setting a really high bar. And Roger, we love you and thank you. And I know you're going to help with the transition. So moving forward, let's hope for a better year as far as academics go and schools being open. Again, thank you so much. Deeply appreciated.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yes, and thank you, Bo and Roger. Yeah, hopefully I can do as well as both of you did. So thank
You got this.
you. Thanks.
We have faith.
Thanks. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'm not giving that up.
Okay.
Second.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you. So meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next month.